Hey guys, tonight we slip off your sneakers and step right into a sheet of rain. The mountain path is slick, the stones are dark with water, and your umbrella is useless against the sideways drizzle. You hike slowly upward until a wooden gate comes into view, its curved roofline dripping like the eaves of a dragon's mouth. Beyond it, the monastery sits wrapped in mist, roofs of gray tiles stacked like folded wings. It's a place built for retreat, where walls creak softly and every sound of the forest echoes as if amplified by prayer. You're already soaked, but it feels oddly comforting, as if the mountain itself has decided to rinse the week off you. And yes, you probably won't survive this climb if you're wearing those slippery city shoes, but you made it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Rain patters on the courtyard stones as you cross into the temple grounds. Pine needles cling to your wet sleeves. In the kitchen building off to the side, steam rises from a row of iron pots. A monk in a patched gray robe slides a wooden door open and nods you in without a word. You're not sure if you're supposed to bow or wave, so you do both, a clumsy little bob that earns a faint smile. Inside, the air smells like wet stone mixed with roasted grains. The wooden floor creaks under your socks. Everything feels slow, deliberate. Even the ladles hang from hooks like they're meditating. Historians still argue whether rainy season retreats in medieval Korea were strictly for study or also functioned as communal survival camps. Either way, they always revolved around food. Food kept the mind steady, the body grounded, and the monastic calendar on track. A brazier flickers at one end of the kitchen, casting orange light on earthenware bowls stacked high. Each bowl has subtle differences. One chipped, another repaired with a line of golden lacquer that glows like a scar. You run your fingers along the rim and feel how smooth it is from decades of hands before yours. The monk gestures for you to sit at a low bench near the hearth. You feel the heat on your shins, grateful for it. The first pot's lid lifts, releasing a billow of steam that smells faintly sweet, faintly nutty, like barley left in the rain and then roasted. Another pot holds chopped radish, simmering with kelp. You're still dripping, but your stomach lurches with anticipation. The monk notices and gives a tiny nod that says patience. The rain drumming outside becomes the metronome of waiting. Somewhere deeper in the compound, a bell sounds, deep, resonant, like a heartbeat slowed by meditation. It calls the monks to the hall, but you remain here, a guest. In medieval times, visitors could sometimes stay during the rainy retreats, but they were expected to blend into the silence. You try it, holding your breath with a hush, but then your nose tickles from the steam and you sneeze. A few monks glance over but return to their bowls. Apparently sneezes don't count as breaches of silence. You think about how different this is from your own rainy days at home. No takeout apps, no microwaves, just fire, rain, and patience. The kitchen is a living museum. Historians still debate whether some of the utensils here, broad wooden paddles, ceramic fermentation weights, came from China or were purely Korean innovations adapted to the peninsula's monsoon life. Either way, you can tell they've been perfected by centuries of rainy seasons. The monk brings you a wooden cup of barley tea, roasted until it smells like warm bread. The liquid is almost brown, faintly bitter, but spreads warmth down your throat and into your belly. A light joke surfaces in your mind. So this is medieval Korean coffee. You don't say it out loud, but you smile into the cup. He gestures again, and you follow him out through a sliding door onto a covered walkway. Rain sheets down off the tiled roof, creating a watery curtain. Beyond it, the forest seems to sway. Bamboo bends under the weight of droplets. Moss glows a deep green. A single magpie hops along the railing, tilting its head at you as if judging your posture. Even here, life goes on. You pass by storage rooms with heavy doors. Through one crack, you glimpse rows of ceramic jars half buried in cool earth. They hold sauces, pastes, pickles, the silent companions of monks through months when fresh food is scarce. Later you'll learn how those ferments become the heart of every meal, but for now you just feel their presence, like old friends you haven't met yet. The rain deepens to a steady roar. In the main hall the monks kneel for evening chanting. You catch glimpses of their shaved heads shining under candlelight. They look like smooth stones pulled from a river. A faint smell of incense threads through the damp air, making your eyes prickle. Your stomach growls again, embarrassingly loud in the hush. You remember reading that during the rainy retreats, meals were timed strictly 2 a day, sometimes only 1. It wasn't just about scarcity, it was spiritual training. Hunger sharpened the mind, the elders said, but they also knew how to make simple food comforting. That's why the smell of simmering broth lingers everywhere like a promise. You return to the kitchen bench, cupping your tea. The monk ladles a small sample of broth into a wooden spoon and offers it to you. It's light but deep, kelp, radish, maybe a dash of soy paste. No chili, no garlic. Those were often restricted in temples to avoid stimulating the senses. Yet the flavor hums quietly, like a lone note on a drum. You swallow, and the warmth spreads. The monk sets a bowl of rice beside you. Short grains, sticky but not clumped. You eat slowly, mindful of the rain's rhythm. This is not a feast, yet it feels like one. In your mind, you joke again. Rainy day fine dining, monk edition. You imagine a medieval menu written in calligraphy. Course 1, humility. Course 2, silence. Dessert, enlightenment. You watch as another monk kneels to adjust the fire under the pot. Sparks leap like fireflies, then die against the damp air. You realize how much work it takes to keep even a small kitchen going in this weather. Gathering wood, keeping it dry, tending flames. Shared labor creates shared food, which creates shared silence. Outside, a clap of thunder rolls across the valley. The monks don't flinch. You do. The older monk glances at you with a tiny smirk. Maybe his version of a joke. You grin back, feeling like you've been admitted into some quiet club. Your eyes drift to a painting hanging near the doorway. A simple ink wash of mountains and mist. A tiny figure trudges up a trail with a bundle on his back. You recognize yourself in that little figure, soaked but moving forward. Maybe that's the point of a rainy retreat. To keep walking, to keep showing up, to keep eating simple food even when the sky won't clear. The smell of broth deepens. The wooden bowls gleam in the firelight. You hear a monk humming under his breath, soft, tuneless, but somehow as steady as the rain. You sip your tea again, warm now from the inside out. This isn't just a kitchen. It's the doorway to a whole rhythm of life you didn't know you were missing. You wake before dawn to the sound of rain, the same steady percussion that lulled you to sleep. It's darker than you expect, a thick velvet gloom that makes even the wooden walls feel like part of the night. The temple bell rings, a slow, deep tone that seems to ripple through your ribs. You slip from your thin bedding, joints stiff from the cold, and pad across the floor toward the dining hall. Inside, candles flicker against polished beams. Rows of monks kneel at low tables, bowls already set before them. Nobody speaks. The only sound is the hiss of rain and the faint scrape of wooden spoons. You hesitate at the entrance until a younger monk beckons you to an empty place. The air smells of wet robes and steamed grain. Your bowl contains a pale porridge, more water than grain at first glance. You lean closer and see tiny pearls of barley, or is it millet, floating in a soft, glistening swirl. A sprinkle of sesame seeds sits on top like a constellation. This is your breakfast, humble, warm, and meant to soothe rather than thrill. You lift the spoon and taste. It's nutty, slightly sweet from long simmering, with a whisper of salt that makes your tongue wake up. In medieval Korea, monastic mornings often began with gruel like this. It was cheap, easy to digest, and prepared in enormous cauldrons at night, so no one had a fuss at dawn. Historians still argue whether barley or millet dominated these bowls, depending on region and period. Records mention both, and temple gardens grew whatever thrived in local soil. Either way, you're tasting continuity, the same grain, the same rain, the same silence. You glance at your neighbors. They hold their bowls with two hands, bringing each spoonful up slowly, like a ritual. Their faces are blank but serene. You mimic them, try to match the pace. It feels awkward at first. Your city brain wants to shovel food, but then your breathing slows. Spoon, swallow, exhale. The porridge warms your stomach like a small sun. You notice something quirky. Each monk's bowl has 3 tiny dots painted on the rim. You ask later and learn they're not decoration, but a reminder of the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Eating from a bowl that literally marks human flaws is a way of checking your appetite before it runs wild. You smile at the thought, like having a tiny motivational poster on your breakfast cereal. A side dish appears. A few slivers of pickled radish, pale yellow and glossy. They taste sharp, a tang that cuts through the mild porridge. The monks chew slowly, eyes half closed, as if this is the most exciting flavor they'll meet all week. Another small dish contains seaweed soaked until tender. You roll a piece on your tongue. It tastes like the ocean under rain. Somewhere a door slides open, and a tall monk enters carrying a brass kettle. He pours roasted grain tea into everyone's cups. The smell rises, nutty, earthy, faintly smoky. You sip. The warmth and bitterness mingle in your chest like a quiet drumbeat. You're awake now, but gently. The meal continues in silence. No phones, no chatter, just rain and breath. You think of breakfast buffets back home. Music, clatter, people juggling coffee cups and emails. And the contrast makes you chuckle softly. The monk next to you glances over, one eyebrow raised. You shrug, hoping your inner joke doesn't break any sacred rule. At the far end of the hall sits an elder monk, skin lined like folded cloth. He eats more slowly than anyone, almost motionless between spoonfuls. Later you hear he's been through 40 rainy retreats, 40 seasons of barley porridge, 40 seasons of listening to rain instead of the world. You can't decide if that's inspiring or terrifying. Another debate whispers at the edge of your thoughts. Historians still argue whether temple kitchens of the period always avoided garlic and onions. Some texts say yes. They were banned for their hot nature, thought to stir passions. Other records show them sneaking in during harvest seasons. You peer at your porridge suspiciously, half expecting a rebel clove of garlic to surface like a submarine. None does. When the bowls are nearly empty, a monk walks around with a kettle of hot water. Everyone pours a little into their bowls, swirls it, and drinks the mix to clean both bowl and stomach. You copy them. The thin gruel at the bottom dissolves into a mild broth. You drink it down. It's strangely satisfying, like the encore after a concert, soft and familiar. The younger monk who guided you and finally speaks, his voice barely louder than the rain. We eat before sunrise so that our minds stay clear for meditation. He smiles shyly, then returns to silence. You think about how that would play out in your own life. Office meetings on an empty stomach, focus sharpened by hunger. You're not sure your coworkers would approve. After the meal, everyone wipes their bowls with a small scrap of cloth and stacks them neatly. No dishwashers, no soap bubbles, just warm water and careful hands. The kitchen smells clean, like steam and wood. You find yourself enjoying the tidiness, the deliberate lack of clutter. Even the spoons line up like soldiers ready for inspection. Outside, dawn is finally cracked. A thin silver light filters through the rain. You step onto the veranda with your empty bowl. The mountains are half hidden, but you can see the tips of pines swaying. The smell of wet earth rises, a scent you didn't know you missed. A bell rings again, softer this time. The monks drift toward the meditation hall, robes brushing the floor. You linger, your belly warm, your mind quieter than it was last night. This is breakfast on a rainy retreat. Not indulgence, not deprivation, but a measured beginning. You wonder what lunch, or whatever comes next, will taste like. Maybe more porridge, maybe something you've never heard of. The thought makes you grin. Medieval Mystery Menu, Part 2. At least you're not stuck with instant noodles. You return your bowl to the kitchen shelf. The monk gives you a tiny bow. You bow back, a little smoother than last night. Rain taps the roof like fingers on a drum, keeping time. Your day inside the misty monastery has only just begun, and already you're part of its rhythm. You follow a narrow path out of the main courtyard, the rain easing to a misty drizzle. The forest here feels like a living pantry, and you're about to find out why the monks keep it so close. A younger monk gestures for you to walk beside him, carrying a woven basket on his back. The trail is slick, stones hidden under wet leaves, and your sandals slip more than once. He chuckles soundlessly and hands you a staff to steady yourself. You accept it like a pilgrim receiving a relic. The air smells green, ferns, moss, and a faint herbal tang you can't name. Drops fall from bamboo, leaves onto your shoulders. Somewhere above, a woodpecker taps, as if providing percussion to your damp trek. You pass a tiny shrine, half swallowed by ivy. Inside sits a weathered wooden Buddha that someone has crowned with a sprig of mugwort. Maybe even statues need protection from mosquitoes. This is how rainy retreats in medieval Korea often fed themselves, not just from gardens, but from what the mountains offered. You crouch with the monk at the edge of a stream where fiddlehead ferns unfurl like little scrolls. He plucks a few, their tight coils glistening, and drops them into his basket. You imitate him, careful not to crush them. The texture is crisp, almost rubbery. Good for soup, he whispers. Historians still argue whether these foraging trips were strictly scheduled or done more casually. Some temple records describe detailed timetables. Others read like spontaneous nature walks. Either way, your damp knees and cold fingers tell you this is real labor, not some romantic picnic. You climb higher, past dripping pines, until you reach a patch of mugwort, dark green, leaves shaped like tiny flames. The monk rubs one between his palms and holds it under your nose. It smells earthy, bitter, a little like sage but wilder. Tea, medicine, flavor, he says simply. You imagine a medieval version of a health food commercial. Mugwort. Now with extra enlightenment, you bite back a laugh. Another basket carries bracken shoots. Longer, darker than fiddleheads. In temple cooking, they're boiled and seasoned, becoming a staple side dish even today. You remember reading that in famine years, bracken kept whole communities alive. Yet some modern nutritionists war about toxins if it's not prepared correctly. The monks seem unbothered, centuries of practice in their hands. As you pick your way down a slope, you spot a cluster of mushrooms under a decaying log. Their caps glisten like coins. You point. The monk shakes his head gently. Poisonous. Not every gift of the mountain is meant for the bowl. You tuck that thought away like a proverb. A gust of wind pushes mist across the path, and for a moment you're inside a moving cloud. Everything smells sharper. Pine, soil, your own damp wool. You think of your grocery store back home with its neat aisles, fluorescent lights, and automatic doors. Here, your produce section drips on your head and hides behind thorns. You grin. This is extreme shopping. Back at the monastery kitchen, other monks have returned from different trails. Their baskets overflow with wild greens. Fernbrake, young perilla leaves, even a few tiny wild chives despite the season. They lay everything on low tables. The colors are muted but fresh. Deep greens, soft browns, flashes of purple stems. Rainwater beads on the leaves like jewels. The kitchen becomes a quiet workshop. Monks trim stems, rinse greens in big wooden tubs, and sort them into piles for immediate cooking or drying. You roll up your sleeves and join them. Fingers numb from cold water, but oddly happy. The rhythm, snip, swish, stack, feels like meditation in motion. A fringe tidbit catches your attention. One monk is fermenting a batch of wild chrysanthemum leaves. He shows you a jar where the greens float in brine with a stone on top. Special rainy day kimchi, he whispers. You imagine a monk's secret recipe book, 101 ways to make greens less boring. The main cook, an older monk with forearms like tree roots, starts a cauldron of soup. Into it go handfuls of greens, a dash of soy paste, a slice of dried kelp from a storeroom. Steam rises, carrying the scent of earth and sea together. You lean over and inhale. It smells like a forest learning to sing. Historians still debate the exact balance of wild versus cultivated foods in temple diets. Some argue that by the Goryeo period, monastic gardens were sophisticated enough to supply most needs. Others insist that foraging remained central, especially during monsoon retreats when roads washed out and supply carts couldn't reach the mountains. Standing here with wet hair and a basket of mugwort, you're leaning toward the latter. The monks add a pinch of perilla seed powder, nutty, almost like sesame, and stir slowly. No rush. The fire crackles, sending tiny sparks up the chimney. You're offered a taste from a wooden spoon. The broth is light but layered, bitter greens mellowed by soy, a whisper of seaweed's brine, and something floral from mugwort. It wakes up parts of your tongue you didn't know existed. You make a small joke to yourself. Medieval Korean detox soup, now trending on social media. In truth, you can see why modern temple cuisine draws foodies. This is health food with actual history, not just marketing. As the soup simmers, a monk brings out earthen jars of preserved roots, burdock, lotus, and something you can't identify. He slices a few into the broth. The smell deepens, becomes rounder. Another monk tosses in tofu made from scratch that morning, white cubes bobbing like little boats. You think of your last rainy day lunch at home, instant ramen. This is different. You sit on a bench as they work, watching steam condense on the windows. Outside, the rain picks up again, drumming on the roof. Inside, the kitchen hums with quiet purpose. Every movement, cutting, stirring, ladling, is deliberate like brushstrokes on a scroll. When the soup is ready, everyone takes a small bowl. No rush, no announcement. You sip. Warmth floods your chest, chasing out the damp chill of the forest. The greens still have a slight bite, the tofu soft, the broth clean. It tastes like a landscape distilled. A final quirky note. A monk slips a single pine nut into each guest's bowl, a tradition you've never seen. Later you learn it's a blessing for longevity. You chew the nut slowly, savoring its sweetness. You look around at the monks eating, their faces calm. You realize this isn't just about sustenance. Foraging, cooking, eating, it's all one continuous meditation, like breathing with a mountain. Even the rain seems part of the recipe. You set down your empty bowl. The younger monk catches your eye and gives a tiny nod. No words needed. You're learning their language. Silence, patience, gratitude. The rain turns heavier as afternoon deepens, and the whole compound smells of wet earth and steaming broth. You duck into a low building at the edge of the courtyard, the storeroom you glimpsed earlier. A monk slides the door open for you, and a cool, earthy breath wafts out. Inside, rows of dark clay jars line the walls, each capped with a heavy stone. They look like silent sentinels waiting for orders. This is the beating heart of a rainy retreat kitchen. Without these ferments, the monks will be gnawing plane roots by now. The younger monk lifts a lid and tips it just enough for you to peek. A rich, brown paste glistens inside, its surface glossy from years of care. It's doenjang, fermented soybean paste, the base note of countless soups. Even today, every Korean kitchen keeps a jar. Here, the jar is older than some family trees. You lean in and inhale. It smells deep, salty, a little funky like a secret cave. This one, 3 years, the monk murmurs. He points to another, 5 years. Historians still argue whether temple ferments had special recipes distinct from lay households. Some say the monks kept them simpler, no chili, no garlic, to avoid overstimulation. Others believe they experimented wildly with herbs and wild greens. You can't tell from smell alone. It's all mystery and umami. Another jar holds doenjang, a thin soy sauce drawn off during fermentation. It's almost black, shining like ink. A third jar, when opened, releases a sour, spicy scent that makes your eyes water. Inside is early-style kimchi, before the red pepper arrived from the New World. No fiery flakes yet, just Napa cabbage brine with radish, mustard seed, and maybe a touch of ginger. You taste a shred. It's tangy, crisp, surprisingly delicate. You joke to yourself, medieval white kimchi, coming soon to a hipster restaurant near you. In one corner sits a stack of dried gourds and bamboo tubes, once used to carry these sauces up into hermitages. The monk picks one up, showing you how a stopper of pine bark seals it. You imagine trudging through a storm with a gourd of soy paste on your back. Korean takeout, 12th century style. He lifts another lid to reveal a more unusual sight. Brined lotus stems spiraled like sleeping snakes. For rainy days only, he says, a fringe tidbit you hadn't expected. Some temples fermented not only vegetables, but also tree blossoms, cherry or magnolia. creating perfumed condiments for ceremonial meals. You picture monks sprinkling fermented petals over rice like a secret garnish. The air in the storeroom is cool despite the humidity outside. Water drips from the eaves, but here time stands still. You run your fingers over the rough clay of a jar, feeling its tiny cracks filled with salt crust. Every jar tells a story of patient labor, boiling soybeans, shaping them into blocks, hanging them to mold in winter air, then submerging them in brine for months or years. The monks call it listening food because you have to wait for it to speak. Historians still debate whether such large stores meant temples were self-sufficient or whether lay villagers supplied them in exchange for blessings. Some records hint at caravans of earthenware jars trudging up the mountain before monsoon season. You picture a procession of oxen carrying jars of kimchi like a medieval delivery service. Even Amazon can't beat that for dedication. The monk hands you a wooden spoon dipped in doenjang. You taste. It's salty but mellow, like miso turned earthy and round. A whisper of sweetness lingers. Suddenly the soups you've been drinking make sense, the depth behind their simplicity. You imagine an invisible hand reaching from the past to your tongue. Another spoonful, this time of soy sauce. It's sharper, almost smoky. He explains they sometimes age it in pine barrels for a faint resin scent. You think about craft beer tastings back home and nearly laugh. Here, monks have been doing artisanal for centuries without hashtags. In the far corner sits a small altar with a single candle burning. The flame flickers over a jar sealed with cloth, not stone. For ceremonies, the monk says. He doesn't open it. You respect the silence. Some ferments, like some prayers, are not for casual tasting. Back in the kitchen, you see how these jars translate into action. A monk ladles a spoon of doenjang into a pot of simmering greens. Another splashes soy sauce over sliced radish before drying it. The smells blend, earthy, salty, sweet, and your stomach rumbles again. A quirky moment breaks the solemnity. One novice accidentally splashes soy sauce on his robe. Instead of scolding, the elder monk chuckles and quips in a whisper you barely catch. Now you smell like enlightenment. You grin. Even monks can't resist a kitchen joke. You notice how careful they are with portions. No handfuls, just measured spoons. The sauces are powerful and precious. A little too much could overwhelm the food. It's a lesson in restraint you could probably apply to your own cooking or your social media use. The rain outside grows heavier, drumming on the tiled roof like distant applause. You feel the storeroom's coolness cling to your skin even after you leave. Back in the main hall, bowls of soup are being served, each flavored slightly differently thanks to these ferments. You taste one with bracken and doenjang, rich, grounding. Another with radish and early kimchi, bright, lively. Same base, different stories. A debate you overhear among the monks. Should the next batch of kimchi include a sprig of wild chrysanthemum? One says yes, for aroma. Another says no, for discipline. Historians still argue, and apparently monks still do too. You sip your soup, amused at how even ascetics get opinionated about condiments. As evening approaches, the kitchen settles into a low hum. Jars are sealed, floors wiped, ladles hung back on their hooks. The smell of fermented soybean clings to your sleeves, and you don't mind. You feel like you've been initiated into a quiet secret society whose password is umami. Outside, mist swirls around the lanterns. You hear frogs croaking in the wet grass and think about how much of this life depends on waiting. Waiting for rain, for crops, for fermentation, for hunger to sharpen into appreciation. You cradle your bowl of soup and drink slowly. It tastes like patience itself. The rain softens into a fine spray as dusk leans toward evening. After hours of foraging, stirring, and tasting, your senses crave something lighter, almost ceremonial. The younger monk who has guided you all day beckons with a finger. You follow him down a corridor lined with wooden panels polished by centuries of hands. At the far end, a sliding door opens into a dim hall where a faint sweetness floats in the air. Low tables stand in a square around a brazier glowing with coals. A kettle sits on top, steam curling upward in delicate threads. Beside it, a stack of small clay cups waits, each one slightly different, chipped or smooth by use. You take a seat cross-legged on the floor. The wood is cool under your knees. Around you, monks settle silently, their robes whispering. The elder monk pours roasted grain tea, baricha, into each cup. It's made from barley toasted until it smells like warm bread and nuts, then steeped in boiling water. The liquid glows a translucent amber, like bottled sunset. You cradle the cup, feeling its heat soak into your palms. One sip and a mellow, nutty bitterness spreads across your tongue. It's gentler than coffee, earthier than plain water. Your breath slows. In medieval Korean temples, tea wasn't just a beverage. It was a mindfulness drill disguised as hospitality. Historians still argue whether the monks of this period adopted more Chinese-style tea rituals or developed their own simpler grain-based drinks. Either way, you're sitting in the middle of the evidence. No powdered green tea, no whipped froth, just roasted barley and silence. A monk brings out a wooden tray covered with banana leaves. On it rests a stack of tiak, rice cakes, steamed that morning. They're small, round, slightly glossy, dusted with fine bean powder. When he lifts the leaf, a warm, sweet aroma drifts over you, faintly floral, faintly nutty. He places one cake on your palm. It's soft, still warm, and heavier than it looks. You bite gently. The rice cake yields with a chewy sigh, releasing mild sweetness and a hint of sesame oil. No sugar rush, no icing, just calm sweetness. You smile at the contrast. Outside, the rain drums like 1,000 drums. Inside, you chew slowly, a private percussion. You joke silently to yourself. Medieval Korean energy bar, zero plastic wrap. This snack has layers of meaning. Tiak in temple life wasn't everyday fare. It was reserved for ceremonial days, meditation breaks, or to mark the end of a retreat. Here, it also keeps you from fainting after hours of near-silent labor. The monks treat it with quiet respect, holding each cake with 2 fingers, pausing before the first bite. You follow their rhythm. A quirky tidbit slips out when the young monk leans close to whisper. Sometimes we add mugwort powder for color. It turns green like moss. He grins, almost conspiratorial. You imagine a kitchen full of green rice cakes lined up like jade stones, monks sneaking bites between chants. At one end of the hall, an elder monk taps a small wooden block 3 times. Everyone closes their eyes for a moment, cups and cakes in hand. The rain outside forms a soft backdrop. You do the same, feeling the warmth of tea, the chew of rice cake, the hush of shared pause. It's like the whole monastery has inhaled at once and forgotten to exhale. Historians still debate how strictly these tea sessions were codified. Some texts describe elaborate sequences of bowing, pouring, tasting, and turning cups. Others suggest a looser, almost casual gathering, just monks warming themselves on wet afternoons. From your seat, it feels like a middle path, deliberate but not stiff, sacred but not forbidding. You notice the grain tea is poured in small amounts, refilled often. It keeps you aware, not dulled. The rice cake's mild sweetness balances the tea's bitterness. You think about how modern snacks spike and crash your energy. Here, you feel steady, grounded. A small joke ripples through your mind. This is the first ASMR mukbang without microphones. You suppress a laugh, but a monk across from you meets your eyes with a twinkle, as if he heard your thought. The brazier's coals shift with a soft hiss. The elder monk adds a few pine cones, and a faint resin scent joins the air. He begins to speak, voice slow and low, about gratitude for simple food. You catch only fragments, but understand the feeling. The warmth of the cup, the sweetness of the cake, the sound of rain. All of it is practice. In a corner of the hall, a small alcove holds jars of roasted grains, barley, corn, buckwheat, ready to be turned into tea. Each jar is labeled in calligraphy. The young monk explains they rotate grains with the seasons. Buckwheat in late autumn, barley in summer rains. It's like a medieval beverage calendar. You imagine monks debating next month's tea lineup like baristas. Another fringe detail, some temples brewed a pine needle infusion on particularly cold, damp days. It smelled like a forest and was thought to clear the lungs. You can almost taste it in your imagination. Sharp, green, invigorating. Your cup empties again. This time you refill it yourself from the kettle, imitating the elder's graceful wrist tilt. The liquid shivers into your cup like liquid amber. You sip, slower now. The rice cake dwindles to its last bite, chewy and satisfying. Around you, the monks finish in near unison. Cups and plates are placed back on the tray. The brazier's glow dims. No one rushes to leave. They simply sit, breathing. Outside, the rain shifts to a gentle patter, as if taking its cue from the tea ritual. You feel a calm you didn't expect, a warm, steady hum under your skin. Maybe it's the roasted grain, maybe the shared silence. Either way, you're hooked. This isn't caffeine, it's communion. You glance at the doorway leading back to the kitchen. You know there's still work ahead, vegetables to chop, pots to scrub, but for now you're suspended in a soft pocket of time. Tea, cake, rain, breath. The light outside fades to a silvery gray. After tea and rice cakes, you're sure the day's eating must be over, but no, the evening meal still waits. In the temple, it's called yaki, the medicine meal, and it's as much about healing as about filling your stomach. You rise from the tatama floor, legs stiff, and follow a pair of monks into a side room you haven't seen before. It smells like an apothecary meta kitchen. Bitter herbs, steaming grains, faint smoke from a small fire pit. Low shelves hold bundles of roots tied with hemp cord, ginseng, angelica, licorice. In earthen jars you glimpse dried jujubes and slices of ginger. The young monk grins at your wide-eyed look and whispers, "Food is medicine. Medicine is food." You kneel by a low counter. In front of you is a large black cauldron already simmering, its surface broken by lazy bubbles. This is gamguk, a long-simmered broth made from vegetable scraps, seaweed stalks, and soybean paste. The monks call it their rainy day armor. It's not flashy, no meat, no bone marrow, but it's rich with minerals. Historians still argue whether some temples secretly added tiny dried fish or even deer antler shavings on special retreat days. No record is conclusive, but you can almost taste the rumor in the air. The elder monk drops a handful of shredded seaweed into the cauldron. A salty, oceanic aroma blooms instantly. He stirs with a long wooden spoon. The broth darkens to a deep green brown. You joke silently. Kale smoothie, 13th century edition. In the corner, a stone mortar holds a mixture of toasted sesame seeds, salt, and a dash of wild pepper. Another monk crushes it with a pestle, the rhythmic thud like a heartbeat. When he's done, he sprinkles some into your palm. You taste nutty, warm, slightly spicy. This will garnish the broth later, like a medieval Korean fura cake. While you watch, a novice monk rinses sprouted beans in a wooden bowl. He's precise, almost reverent, as he drains the cloudy water, shakes the sprouts, and adds them to a steaming bamboo steamer. The sprouts will be blanched and mixed with soy sauce and sesame oil. Asterisk, asterisk, condimal muchum, asterisk, asterisk. One of the simplest but most beloved temple dishes. You start to chop wild greens with a knife that looks older than your grandparents'. The blade glints dully. The handle is smooth from decades of hands. The greens smell of rain, iron, and faint bitterness. You're told they'll be folded into a soft rice porridge. This porridge, juk, is gentle on the stomach and warms the body after long meditation. As the kitchen hums, the young monk tells you a fringe story. On particularly harsh rainy retreats, some monks chewed on pine resin between meals to stave off hunger. It supposedly cleared the mind, but made their teeth sticky. You picture a row of monks, jaws working like discreet cows, resin glinting at the corners of their mouths. The image makes you snort quietly. The cauldron's broth thickens. The elder tastes it, adds a spoonful of fermented soybean paste, and nods. He ladles a portion into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. The bowl warms your hands, steam curling into your face. You sip. It's earthy, oceanic, faintly sweet from the seaweed, deeply grounding. Your body relaxes even as your tongue wakes up. You move to the next pot, the rice porridge. It's pale, almost creamy, grains half dissolved, flecked with wild greens. The novice hands you a spoon carved from pearwood. You take a small taste, soft, slightly nutty, like a hug disguised as food. No heavy salt, no spice. You think of all the flashy detox soups you've seen on social media and almost laugh. This one's the real monk mode cleanse. As you eat, the monks bring out side dishes on narrow trays. Pickled radish cut into matchsticks, slices of tofu marinated in soy sauce, a tiny dish of perilla leaves folded like origami. Everything is modest but arranged with care. You notice the colors: pale green sprouts, off-white tofu, golden sesame. It's like an edible mandala. Historians still debate whether these evening meals were eaten in total silence or with soft chanting. Some records describe murmured sutras between bites. Others mention relaxed conversation. Tonight, your table is mostly quiet, but here and there a low joke passes like a breeze. One monk comments on your chopping technique, not bad for a traveler, and another chuckles. You take another sip of broth. Outside, the rain has slowed to a soft dripping. The smell of wet wood seeps into the kitchen. You realize your sense of time is blurred. You're not sure if it's 6 or 9 p.m. You're also not sure you care. A quirky tidbit floats from the elder monk. When we run out of soybeans, we grind chestnuts instead. Makes a sweeter paste. He smiles faintly, as if remembering some long ago storm when chestnut paste saved the retreat from blandness. After bowls are emptied, no one rushes to leave. Instead, a slow ritual of cleanup begins. Bowls are stacked, spoons wiped, pots rinsed. You join in, your movements unconsciously slower, calmer. You think back to your kitchen at home, where dishes pile like enemy soldiers. Here, washing feels like part of the meal. One by one, the monks slip out of the kitchen, robes brushing the doorway. You remain a moment longer, inhaling the mingled scents of broth, sesame, and rain. You feel full, but not heavy, warm, but not drowsy. The evening meal has done its work. You imagine tomorrow's breakfast, probably simple rice, maybe more sprouts, a thin soup. No sugar, no coffee, no croissants. Yet you feel strangely content, even proud of your body for accepting these flavors without complaint. A final thought crosses your mind as you stack the last wooden bowl. Maybe monks didn't live longer because of miracles. Maybe it was just the broth. You grin at your private joke, and the young monk catches your eye with a knowing smile, as if to say exactly. Night has fallen fully now. The rain turned to a mist so fine it's almost invisible. Lanterns flicker along the covered walkways, casting honey-colored pools of light on the wet wooden planks. You pad barefoot back toward the hall where mats are laid out for evening meditation. Your stomach feels quietly satisfied from the broth and porridge, but not sluggish. It's the kind of full that lets your mind stay awake. A bell tolls once, low and resonant. You follow the sound to a room you've only glimpsed, an inner chamber used for late-night study. Candles burn in small clay holders, their flames steady. A faint incense of sandalwood laces the air. The monks gather in a circle, robes brushing against each other. A scroll is unrolled in the center, but you can't read the calligraphy. It's enough to listen to the rustle of paper and the soft chanting that begins. You sit cross-legged, try to mimic their posture. Your knees complain, your back creaks. A young monk notices, gives you a tiny cushion. You accept with a grateful nod. The chanting deepens, rising and falling like the ocean. You let it wash over you, eyes half closed. Then, quietly, without fanfare, a tray appears at the edge of the circle. On it are small bowls of a warm liquid, something between tea and broth. The scent is both sweet and herbal, like roasted chestnuts and faint mint. You take a bowl when it reaches you. This is in samcha, ginseng tea, the monks' late-night pick-me-up. They call it wind under the wings. You sip. The liquid is light brown, slightly bitter at first, then spreading warmth down your throat and into your chest. It's not sugary. It's alive, earthy, a forest condensed into a cup. Historians still argue whether medieval Korean monks had steady access to true ginseng or used substitutes like balloon flower root. Either way, it feels like you're drinking focus itself. A small joke flits through your head. Medieval energy drink. No neon can required. You smile into your bowl. A monk across the circle catches your eye, and you both smirk in the shared absurdity. The chanting pauses. The elder monk speaks slowly about mindfulness, his words like stones dropped into a still pond. You don't catch every meaning, but the cadence soothes you. He gestures toward the tea, saying something about medicine for the heart, not just the body. You nod even though you're not sure he's looking at you. A quirky tidbit emerges in a low whisper from the young monk at your side. On really stormy nights, the old masters would float herbs in the tea shaped like tiny boats. They said it helped guide wandering spirits. You picture a fleet of floating herb boats circling your cup and have to bite your lip to stop a giggle. After the tea, another small snack appears, dried persimmon slices, chewy and faintly sweet like amber coins. They stick slightly to your fingers. You chew slowly. No one rushes. The sweet fruit seems to echo the ginseng's bitterness, balancing it. Historians still debate whether these late-night snacks were formal parts of the retreat or indulgences allowed by lenient abbots. Some records paint a picture of strict fasting after sunset. Others hint at quiet tea sessions in side rooms. Judging from the warmth around you, the truth might be somewhere in between. Outside, a gust of wind rattles the wooden shutters. You draw your robe tighter. The warmth of the tea glows in your belly. The chanting resumes, softer now, like a lullaby. You notice how your thoughts slow. Instead of jumping from memory to worry, they drift like leaves in a stream. You think about your own late-night habits at home. Scrolling a glowing screen, snacking on chips, gulping sugary drinks. This feels like an alternate timeline. Here, you're sipping an herbal brew, hearing voices rise and fall. The rain is soft percussion outside. You wonder how many centuries of nights like this have unfolded in these walls. Another monk leans over and murmurs about a fringe practice. Some ascetics would chew on a single pine nut through the whole night to train their minds against craving. One nut, all night. You picture that and almost choke on your persimmon with a stifled laugh. The candle's gutter wax pooling. The elder monk lifts a wooden clapper and strikes it once. The chanting fades. Everyone sits in silence for a long moment, eyes closed. You do the same. Your body hums with warmth, your mind strangely clear. When the silence breaks, it's with soft rustling as monks stand and bow. The tea bowls are collected, persimmon pits left on the tray. You rise slowly, legs tingling. The young monk smiles at you and gestures toward the sleeping quarters. As you step back into the corridor, the air is damp but gentle. Lanterns flicker, casting your shadow long and thin. The smell of wet pine drifts from the hills beyond the temple walls. You think this is how monks eat on rainy retreat days, not just to nourish, but to anchor themselves. The thought feels like a stone settling in your chest, solid and calm. You pause at the edge of the walkway, listening to the last drops falling from the roof. Somewhere inside, a bell chimes again. It's not a signal for food this time, but you feel its vibration in your bones just the same. You slip into the sleeping hall, but instead of lying down, you pause at the threshold. The room is dim. Rows of rolled mats stacked like silent sentinels. In one corner, a low table still holds a few bowls from earlier. Someone forgot them, or maybe they're meant to be a midnight offering. A small oil lamp flickers, its flame bending with each draft of night air. You step inside. The scent of rain damp wood mixes with the faint tang of roasted grains still clinging to your sleeves. You sit on your mat, cross-legged again, the way the monks do. The soft murmur of their breaths fills the space. All around you, bodies at rest, but minds still awake. This is the quiet heart of the retreat. The young monk who guided you all day pads over with a small bundle wrapped in cloth. He opens it to reveal a single bowl of plain white rice, a pinch of salt, and a few pickled greens. For dawn, he whispers, but leaves it at your side. Even the simplest breakfast is prepared the night before, a small act of foresight against hunger. Historians still argue whether such preset bowls were a widespread practice or just a local custom in mountain temples. You run your fingers lightly over the cool ceramic. It's nothing special, no glaze, no decoration, but you feel a tiny surge of affection. All day you've moved from one meal to the next. Thick soups, wild greens, roasted teas, herbal broths, chewy rice cakes, ginseng brews, persimmon slices. Now, at the end, a single bowl of plain rice sits like a period at the end of a long, rain-written sentence. A stray memory surfaces of your own kitchen at home, the rush of microwaves and phone screens, the endless choice of snacks. Here, the choice is made for you, and strangely that feels like freedom. You smile faintly. You think of making a video called "I ate like a medieval Korean monk for a day." You probably won't survive this. The title alone makes you chuckle under your breath. The monks around you are settling, adjusting robes, straightening mats. A candle is snuffed, the room dipping into deeper shadow. In the near dark, you can still make out the faint gleam of the pickled greens in your bowl, like tiny forest leaves captured at twilight. You wonder what wild hill they were plucked from, who rinsed them, who arranged them so neatly. A quirky tidbit whispers through your mind from earlier. Those floating herb boats in tea, guiding wandering spirits. You picture them again, but now they seem to be guiding you inward, across the small sea of your own thoughts. Outside, the rain has dwindled to a fine mist, barely audible. The roof drips now and then like a metronome. Your breathing slows to match it. You think of all the flavors you've tasted today, earthy broths, nutty teas, mild sweets, and how each one seemed to echo the weather, the mood, the rhythm of the retreat. None of it was about indulgence. All of it was about balance. Historians still debate whether monks on rainy retreats ate more generously than on dry days. Some say the damp weather required extra calories for warmth. Others argue the opposite, that storms were an excuse for stricter austerity. Sitting here, belly warm but light, you suspect the truth is again somewhere in between. You pick up the bowl, not to eat, but to feel its weight. It's cool, steady. In the dim hall, you can hear a monk humming softly, almost like a lullaby. Another turns in his sleep. The entire building seems to exhale. You set the bowl down, fold your hands in your lap, and close your eyes. The taste of ginseng tea still lingers faintly at the back of your tongue, the sweetness of persimmon clinging to your teeth. You inhale, slow and deep, and exhale. Your mind drifts to the hills outside, dark and wet, pines standing like tall guardians. A small joke flickers at the edge of your drowsy brain. No delivery apps, no menu panic, just rice and rain. You smile into the darkness. The lamp flickers one last time and dies. The room softens as if someone has turned the volume down on the world. Even the rain seems to hold its breath. You lie back on the mat, the fabric coarse but clean against your cheek. In the dark, scents become stronger, with smoke, damp cloth, a hint of sesame from dinner. Each breath lengthens, slows, warms you from the inside out. Imagine the hills outside, shrouded in mist, streams swollen from the day's rain sliding over stones polished by centuries. Picture the monastery roofs glistening under the moon, pine needles dripping silver. Every sound is far away but friendly. The slow drip of water, the low sigh of wind through cedars, the faint echo of a bell. You let the images of the day drift past like paper boats on a stream. The nutty steam of barley tea, the chewy give of rice cake, the deep earthiness of seaweed broth, the bittersweet hum of ginseng. Each taste a note, each note a chord. The whole day, a song of simple survival and quiet joy. Your limbs grow heavier, not with exhaustion, but with a gentle settling, like soil after rain. The monk's breathing becomes your breathing. The room's darkness becomes a soft blanket. Even the thought of tomorrow's plain rice feels comforting, predictable, steady, a small promise waiting at dawn. Let yourself ease into that stillness. Nothing to swipe, nothing to refresh, only the pulse of your heart and the hush of the temple around you. The storm outside is ending. Inside, you're already in the eye of calm. You can stay here as long as you like. The food, the rain, the chants, all of it has led you to this quiet moment. Drift now